late 1800s, workers faced many hardships. Since business owners wanted to keep their profits as high as possible, they tried to use very little money to run their factories. This included paying workers very low wages. Also, some business owners required workers to buy and bring their own equipment to the job. Some businesses even refrained from purchasing safety equipment for the workers. This led to the death or injury of over 32,000 railroad workers. When factories became overcrowded, many owners wanted some work to be carried out by sweatshops or places where employees toiled for long hours with very poor conditions and insufficient wages. Sometimes even children worked in sweatshops. Factory and sweatshop workers got very bored throughout the course of the day because they did the same job over and over again. Also, factory and sweatshop owners kept wages very low, which added to the disinterest of workers. Some wages were as low as $10 per week. This means that if a person reserved $1 for extra expenses during the week, he would only be able to spend 43 cents for each meal. This led to child labor to ensure that a family could provide for itself. After many years of discontent labor, workers joined together to form groups that fought and argued against the low wages and poor working conditions, called labor unions. After the creation of local labor unions, national labor unions were formed. One example was the Knights of Labor. This organization accepted all types of people, including women and African Americans. Then in 1873, the country fell into an economic depression. This led to many pay cuts, which in turn led to a series of union strikes. Because there were immigrants to replace the strikers, the pay always stayed low. Though the strikes had little success, they helped the Knights of Labor gain attention, which played a major role in improving the working conditions and wages of American labor. One person who played a major role in the development of labor unions was Mary Harris Jones. She was a widow who lost her children and husband to yellow fever. She started a dressmaking business in Chicago, but lost everything in the Chicago Fire of 1871. However, she continued towards her goal of better working conditions. Because Jones continued to work, she became an effective labor leader. People started calling her Mother Jones. Since labor unions were growing at a rapid pace, business owners started to become scared. They blamed this growth on socialists and anarchists. Socialists believed that all members of a society are equal owners of a business, and anarchists wanted to abolish the government. Business owners blamed these two groups because labor unions formed the same type of ideals. While business owners attempted to break labor unions, they were actually fueling union riots and protests. These gatherings led to confrontations with the police and several injuries and deaths. One of the most famous conflicts like this was the Haymarket Affair in Chicago, 1886. After the police arrested union leaders in the Haymarket Square, in the location of the Haymarket Affair, the resistance to unions increased. It also decreased the number of people in the Knights of Labor. One of the most well-known labor strikes was the Homestead Strike. This 4-month-long strike happened when the union refused to work when Andrew Carnegie reduced the wages in the steel mills of Homestead, Pennsylvania. Another well-known strike was the Pullman Strike. This strike started when the Pullman Palace Car Company, a company that produced railroad cars, reduced workers' wages by 25%. Because of this, the Pullman workers started the Pullman Strike. When the Pullman Company didn't change the wages, the president of the American Railway Union, Eugene V. Debs, told all United States railway workers to refuse to work the Pullman cars. So, President Grover Cleveland was forced to send federal troops to end the strike and put Debs in jail. Some companies treated workers better than Carnegie and Pullman. For example, a soap company called Procter & Gamble started giving their workers half a day off every week. Even though there were some of these companies, most still treated workers badly, so the labor union didn't die. So, Samuel Gompers founded the AFL, or American Federation of Labor. The AFL worked for better working conditions through boycotts, strikes, and negotiations. This led to the shorter hours and sufficient pay for workers today. Overall, the struggles of labor unions paid off because they established today's good working conditions and fair wages.